Captain America: The First Avenger was the next movie in the MCU, and we're back with the MCU retrospectives. Took a bit of a break over there because a lot of new movies came out and I had to talk about them. Things look a little different. It's because I'm actually visiting my family right now, and this is actually the room where I'm usually at. We did this place up a few years ago. A lot of things need to be changed. As you can see, there's a baby photo of me over there. And so, yeah, this is going through some, changes at the moment. Anyway, going into Captain America: The First Avenger, this was on the heels of Thor, and that was a movie that I enjoyed quite a bit, even though I did have some issues with it. But I was talking about this, I think, with Transformers: Dark of the Moon, but 2011 was a moment of time where we weren't going to the theater pretty often. The thing that happened is that my dad, halfway into the year, had to go for a program. So he left for a bit. And so during that time, my mom was working and I was going to school. And so the theater was a little distance away. And so unfortunately, we weren't being able to go very often. And so I missed a lot of movies on the big screen. The First Avenger is one of them. In fact, this is probably the only MCU movie that I haven't seen in theaters. I don't count Black Widow because that was during COVID and they had the Disney Plus drop at the same time as well. And so I ended up seeing that at home with my family. But I think with First Avenger, this is the only one that shares that particular, honor of not having seen it on the big screen. But I rewatched it again just now because it's been a minute since I did. And it's, again, just so refreshing to go back to this moment of time where things felt a little simpler with Marvel. But also, in this case, I mean that in more ways than one. Something about the First Avenger is just so goddamn earnest. And something is so pure about the entire story that's being told over here, particularly when it comes to Steve Rogers, that there's a reason I think it resonates with so many people and it remains a favorite. More so now because I think something about Steve Rogers, more than anything else, was the fact that he was a good man. And that's something that the movie uses as a guiding point throughout this runtime. The fact that whatever happens in this movie, why Steve Rogers is Captain America, any of this is because at the end of the day, he's just someone who is good, who wants to help people. And something is so wonderful about that entire feeling, and I think the movie captures that very well, and so does Chris Evans. I think this is a really great casting for this character, and one thing that really managed to stick out when it came to even the movies that he was in after this. He played Steve so well. And again, there's that sense of earnestness to his character and, just wanting to do the right thing and, stand up to bullies because he just doesn't like bullies. And he played it remarkably. It's why he's chosen for the Super Soldier Project, even though there are people who doubt it. Like, why are you choosing this guy of all people? Like Tommy Lee Jones's character, the Colonel who's working there. You're like, why this guy? Like, we have better soldiers. We've got better, more built people to do this. Why him? He's just a skinny, scrawny little kid. It's like, because he's a good man. And that is proven when he throws that dummy grenade and Steve jumps on that dummy grenade to try and, take the blow so that everyone else can get out okay. I thought they did that really, really well. It's one of the more powerful scenes, I would say, of his entire character. You also get a lot of chances with some good characters over here, like some characters who are set up and you see more of them later on. Agent Carter, for example, Haley Atwell was really, really great over here. And she's a character who has ended up being a massive fan favorite. And I think she was a great choice for this role. She did a great job. I also really liked Howard Stark in it, Dominic Cooper. I thought he did a really good job. And while you don't get a ton with him, the dynamic between him and Steve was also pretty fun. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, who's Steve's best friend. I think they did a really good job with him too. And the back and forth between Steve and Bucky is something that is a center point for everything that happens with Steve in this movie and then eventually in the later parts of his story. And once again, they nailed that dynamic. Even though you don't get a ton of time with Steve and Bucky because all sorts of stuff is happening, and for a while Bucky is MIA because he's caught by Hydra. They did a very good job of still making that friendship count, that you cared if something were to happen to them. Speaking of Hydra, I would say this is probably the one part of the movie that was not as interesting. Johann Schmidt, or the Red Skull, played by Hugo Weaving. I thought as a villain he was fine. I think he was very entertaining at times, but you don't really get much development with him past a little bit, which is explained by Dr. Erskine, Stanley Tucci's character, who I really liked in the movie, actually. But besides his explanation of things, you don't get to learn too much about him. I do like the scene how he's explained to it, though, because there is this old-fashioned sense of filmmaking that is throughout, but especially in this moment here, because the visuals harken back so much to 40s and 50s filmmaking. And I like the fact that the movie has that. In fact, so much of the movie feels like a time capsule of a movie. Intentionally so, because, Steve's trapped in ice at the start of this movie. He hasn't woken up from that yet, and so you're seeing all of this until that moment. And so much of it feels like a movie that is seeped in the 40s. And the movie captures that so well, from its visuals to the dialogue, Alan Silvestri's score, which is a major component of that concept. So much of that is in here. And I really like the movie a lot, especially because of that too. Just that feeling, how it's able to convey that through everything that's on display, the action sequences, and even some of the character moments that are in between certain things. Really do a wonderful job of that. But going back to the villain aspect of things, I mean, you have Red Skull, and you have Dr. Zola, played by Toby Jones, who is someone we get to hear a bit more from down the line. And I like what they did with him. I thought he was a fairly decent character, but I just wasn't as invested in the Hydra stuff as much as I was with everything going on with Steve and Peggy and everyone else. And that is the main crux of the movie, and the movie does do a very good job of that aspect of it. I would have liked to see a little bit more past the montage of him being Captain America, because he's going on these missions and some of it looks really, really great. I would have liked to see a little more of that fleshed out, but we didn't get a chance to quite do that. But the montage itself, those moments are really, really well done. And once again, just harkens back to that old school World War II filmmaking that you're kind of used to. It's a very solid war movie in the process that they're able to pull off. As for the finale itself, yes, it's a big explosive comic booky finale, but again, the sense of earnestness that's there throughout this movie really has to be addressed. Again, what does it all come down to? It comes down to Steve being a good man. But also, one thing that they do a really good job of is making the little dynamic between Steve and Peggy count. These two clearly have feelings for each other as the movie progresses. Like, they may not convey it, but there's very clearly something up over there. Steve wants a dance partner in life. He's never had a real dance. He never found the right girl. Peggy might be that right girl, but when Peggy sees him with another woman for a moment, she's not particularly happy about that. And so that aspect of it clearly does play a bit of a, part in the rest of the proceedings. And so as Steve is going down with the Valkyrie and Red Skull has disappeared somewhere with the Tesseract that he had, which, we know where that is eventually down the line, that entire farewell moment between Steve and Peggy is genuinely emotional, and you have this feeling that they're not going to see each other again. And so it all feels climactic in that moment. Like, he's going to wake up and he's going to be the same age. There's a chance she may not still be there. And that aspect is obviously something that, is going to play into that. The fact that he's not going to make it out. And they set up a date. It also makes the final line of the movie hit pretty hard, because when he does wake up and he shows up in modern day New York with all the LCD screens and, the billboards flashing around, and Nick Fury tells him what happened, his line is,
"You gonna be okay?"
Yeah, I had a date.
And that really is a hitting moment. So I think the movie does a very good job of landing that as well. Like I said, there's a couple of things that I think could have been better, but again, just seeing that through line of his character being as good as he is, from being the scrawny kid to becoming that bulked up, built version of himself, the friendships that he has, the missions that he's going on, his dynamic with Peggy, with Erskine, with Tommy Lee Jones, who's so much fun in this movie, and there's so much over here that's delivered so perfectly. And it makes up for a lot of the issues that are there in it. Would I have liked a little bit more of that? Absolutely. But there is something so specific about the vision over here that I think manages to make it the success that it is. And I think that is something that pertains to all of the Captain America movies. There's a very nice, sense of personality to each one of them that comes through in spades, whether it be the Winter Soldier or Civil War as well. Winter Soldier we'll talk about very soon. I'm looking forward to that. So that's my quick thoughts on the First Avenger. Let me know what you guys think about it. I can't wait to talk about the Avengers after this. That should be very exciting. Guys, thank you very much as always. It means, a whole lot that you continue to stick to the channel and enjoy what I'm doing. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.